Mr. Toastmaster, guests, and members, this story I'm going to talk to you today is about my daughter, Kristen. She was a beautiful little girl. She was blonde and blue-eyed. She loved gymnastics and played soccer. She used to try and curl her hair like Farrah Fawcett. When she was 15, she started becoming very sullen, quiet, withdrawn. She was skipping school. And then at 16, she became bulimic. Bulimic is a terrible disease because you have to eat. And when you're bulimic, you eat and you vomit, or there are some people that are bulimic that just continue eating and don't throw up. It scared the heck out of me. I knew somebody that had a daughter that was anorexic, so I knew a little bit about it. And I went to doctors, and they knew nothing. So I could smell her cooking in the middle of the night. She would eat anything she could get her hands on. She would eat a whole loaf of bread, a pound of butter, a dozen eggs, and then she would crawl because she couldn't walk to the bathroom. Throw it up and go back to bed. This went on for years. She was in and out of certain rehabs and psychiatrists. When she was 21, she really wasn't doing very well. She started drinking, and vodka was her choice. Doesn't work on an empty stomach. So I put her in a rehab. It was 3 weeks. And in those 3 weeks, she did exactly what she was supposed to do. She was always a perfect patient. She ate when she was supposed to. She never vomited. She came out. And with a very short amount of time, she was right back to where she was. She developed a heart problem. She had to wear a heart monitor for several weeks. And then when I had actually taken her to my doctor. And he said to her, Chris, if you don't stop, you're going to die. And we walked out of that office, and she looked at me and she said, Mom, I'm not going to die. She never thought she was going to die. When she was in her mid-20s, she decided to become a chef. It's amazing how many chefs have eating disorders. She went to the Culinary Institute in West Palm, and she was so happy, and I was so happy for her. She was really passionate. She loved it. She got trained by a dairy chef who had won the Olympics in Paris, and he told me that she was the best chef that he had ever trained. In the next few years, she worked at Disney. She was one of the top chefs at Disney, but her demons never left her. She met a fellow, went to France, and got married. It was a great wedding. It was a lot of fun. There were 30 people there, 8 different countries with all different languages. It was great. And she was so happy. About a year and a half later, I knew it was falling apart. Her husband called me and he said, I don't know what to do with her. And I said, send her home. So I went to pick her up at the airport, and she's in a wheelchair. She didn't even know who I was. She looked like a bag lady. She had her cat in a little cage on her lap. I took her directly to the hospital, and they said had I not brought her in, she'd have died that night. But she didn't. 3 years of this, afterwards, for 3 years, she was in the hospital 18 times. She had become diabetic. She had systemic poisoning. She was 79 pounds for 3 years. But she kept working. She'd go find a job, and then she'd end up in the hospital. Find another job. It's very hard to watch your child kill themselves every single day. And there was nothing you could do. So, after the 3 years, she'd had enough. It had been 20 years of her doing this to herself. So I found a place in Orlando that she had to sign up with for a year. And she said she'll do it. Because she said to me, do you really think that I want to live like this? Do you think I enjoy this? She couldn't stop. So they didn't have a room available. So she was an outpatient. She did fantastic. She gained 20 pounds. She was writing children's books again. She was playing tennis. She hadn't done anything like that in years. And I thought, finally, maybe this is going to be it. Well, we had a wedding coming up. Her cousin was getting married up in Saratoga, and she really wanted to go. So a week before we were to go, she got sick. And she was in bed. And I went in there to give her something, and she said, Mom, I have to tell you something. I am not afraid to die. I've already died. And it was so beautiful, I didn't want to come back. But what am I going to do with Sting? Sting was her cat. That's all she cared about, her cat. And I said to her, Chrissy, it's okay. If anything ever happens to you, I'll take care of Sting. He had lain right here for 18 years. He never left her. So we went up to Saratoga, and the night before the wedding, she wasn't doing well at all. And she had this stuff on her face, and I said to her, Chrissy, what is that on your forehead? She said, Mom, it's my wrinkle cream. Well, I laughed, right? And I bent over and I kissed her. I said, I love you, honey. She said, I love you too, Mom. That night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard her get out of bed. And I was groggy. And I turned the light on and she was laying on the floor. Well, I thought she had fainted. And I couldn't revive her. So I called 911. They worked on her for about 20 minutes, but she had died instantly. The hospital asked me if I would donate organs, whatever, and I said anything. They sent me a certificate saying that she had helped over 100 people with what they had donated from her. She had cirrhosis of the liver so bad, she would have died a much more horrible death than she did, and somehow God said, it's time, you're out of here. She never knew what hit her. And I'm so grateful for that. I went home, and when I walked in her bedroom, on her dresser, she had written her obituary. Not because she thought she was going to die, but that was an exercise they asked her to do at the rehab center. How do you want people to remember you when you die? So she put, I want them to remember my smile, how kind I was. I want to be cremated, and I want a big party and lots of balloons. And that's exactly what we did. We had so many balloons up in that sky. We had the biggest damn party you could have, and we celebrated her life. You know, I'm always grateful for the fact that I try to remember that I'm so grateful that I had them for the time that I did, not the time that I don't. You need a lot of strength when you go through grief so that you can move forward in your life. It's like the ocean. The ocean sometimes is really calm, and then it might be overwhelming, but you have to learn how to swim. And when you bury a baby, you bury a baby in your heart. We can't change things, but I know that I changed dramatically. I became more tolerant, more forgiving, more compassionate. And then when I started working in the addiction centers and the cancer centers and working with anybody, whatever their illness, I would teach them yoga or Reiki. It helped me. It made me feel so good to be able to help somebody else. We can't go back, but we have this moment. We always have this moment. Take this moment and make it count. Enjoy it. Thank you.